Great, thank you. So Andy talked about using big data and connecting that to research from the Facebook side. Alyssa just talked about the idea of neuroscience. We're going to come from it from a different angle, but instead of talking conceptually, we'll go through an actual case study we just completed. So we decided to study millennials, and you might ask why. Well, whatever statistic you look at, millennials is a large generation. I just read that in 2015, they exceeded baby boomers from total spending power. Now, whether or not that's a true statistic or not, the fact remains it's a growing population from a strength and buying power and influence perspective, and our clients and advertisers are asking us about it. So, how do we define millennials? They are typically born between 1978 and 2000, although there might be some varying definitions. They've been described as growing up with technology, and one way to describe it is they're the selfie generation. I just read an article that they're very individualistic, that they like to express themselves and the unique aspects about their beings. And they've been described as very authentic, right? Like superficial advertising and brands that are not transparent just won't resonate with this group.
So given the need to really express oneself and experience authenticity, it poses a dilemma for us as marketers and advertisers, right? How do we drive a connection with millennials? Well, we have three options. First one, I saw an Adweek announcement recently of a company that hired a whole group of millennials for a department to really drive the marketing. I'm not loving this option because it doesn't bode well for me, and it's also kind of like putting me in charge of marketing to all Gen Xers, right? Figuring out how to appeal to them. The next option is mining the data. So we've talked here a lot about picking up the signals, about using data to develop propensity models and drive reach through lookalike modeling. Definitely a viable option. But what we're going to talk about today is our third option, which is understand consumer decisioning. So we, as Ron mentioned, we studied decision-making around wearables, which are the smart devices or fitness devices. And to us, the need to understand decisioning is complementary to the data mining approach. So if data mining is allowing us to target, understanding decisioning is allowing us to determine what the right experience is to deliver.
So the methodology, we don't have time to go into it, but it's based on a cognitive psychology principle that basically says our choices ultimately are linked in the non-conscious, as Alyssa described, to personal values, deeply rooted things that are inherent to our beings. The person from Distillery just talked about this idea of personal values, things that are really important to us. And the role of emotion plays that connection. So we use a specialized research technique, and what we try to understand is why do people buy the Fitbit, right? Why do they choose that? Why do they buy the Apple Watch? And we wanted to study, does that actually differ for millennials versus non-millennials? And what we found was there were three overlying themes, three high-level personal values that came up to purchases of wearable technology. The first was it helps them create a sense of belonging to others. My sense of connection to my friends, my loved ones, it is enabled. The second was it gets me recognized. It looks good, and I heighten my social status. And the third one was there was a sense of individualism. Like it helps me reach my goals, whatever those goals are, and that helps me be what I want to be. What's interesting, or what the question is, does that vary for millennials?
So let's talk a little bit about sense of belonging and connection. Sense of belonging and connection can be seen as that need to relate to others, right? And so a connected device is a means by which you not only connect to your life, the tasks in your life, the reminders, connect to your fitness, but a lot of individuals motivated by this driver here are driven by that sense of connection to others. I also wanted to point out here that we've talked, during this conference, we've talked a lot about sort of data and rational versus emotional. What we've seen is the need to connect the two is critical. So sense of belonging is more that emotional. It's not necessarily the happiness, it's more of the resonance, how to resonate with an individual. But we tie this to the rational because you do that, or a connected device marketer would do that by focusing on the reminders and alerts and all of those great features and functionality of a connected device. Also wanted to point out that millennials were 33% more likely to to be driven by this motivation. The next motivation is around social status. So this is that need to be judged positively by others. And how is that fulfilled? That's fulfilled by having customizable features, so the ability to change out bands, the ability to have the latest and greatest interface, all of those things that say you're important, you fit in, yet you stand out with this group. And again, 48% more important to the millennials compared to the boomers and the Gen Xers. And then finally, individualism. So individualism was fascinating because we went in with the hypothesis that the millennials were going to be a lot more driven by individualism. But what we found here is that individualism was actually more important to non-millennials. And the way to fulfill on that was really by allowing individuals to track their progress, to reach their goals. And why? Because that gave them a sense that they were living as they wanted to live. It was less so projecting that image of being individualistic.
So one big misconception around this individualism is that for millennials, it's a means to an end, right? I want to seek an individualized product, right? But that's not the end state, versus non-millennials really is the end state. So what does this mean? I've got 3 seconds on a Facebook ad, and I'm going to market to millennials, and I want to talk about the customization of the product. Well, I better make sure that that makes the person feel, right, that they're going to be recognized by others, right? It's going to make them look good, and that's the connection I want to create. And so where do we take this and how do we apply this? So we start with this idea of psychology-driven research. That then we can couple to actually linking to data. We're actually working on a project for a joint client with Crux, one of the sponsors here, to link this information to the DMP so that we can actually use addressable media to vary the creative within the different emotional states or different motivations of folks. So we're no longer guessing as to which creative is going to work. We kind of know, we can kind of draw a box and then build creative impact within there.
So to wrap up, if one is looking to date, it's best if they target somebody who is single, right? And that's not so hard to find. But for it to be a successful relationship, the hard part is really building on that chemistry. And you have common wisdom states that you have 30 seconds to 4 minutes to deliver that first impression, right? Well, it's the same for us. So for us, it's data, right? It's data for targeting and for reach. But it's the motivations that we need to really focus on. And it's harder for us as marketers because we have 2 to 3 seconds often in that digital space to really appeal to the consumer so that we can express our brand in a way that will be resonant and deliver that chemistry. So we do have a webinar that we're going to be sharing if you're interested to learn more about this case study, but otherwise, thank you for your time.